there, my name is Mackenzie. Welcome back to my channel, and thank you so much for being here. Today we are doing kind of an interesting video, and it's a little bit of a two-parter, and this is the first part. We're going to be talking about my favorite genres and subgenres to date. So I'm going to be using this handy dandy little graphic. It seems as if there were only like 5 real genres and everything else is a subgenre. I also went back through my last 3 years of reading and tried to see if there was anything else that didn't necessarily fit. Of course, other things that wouldn't fit would be like nonfiction. This is really just like the 5 main genres of fiction. And then there's nonfiction, biographies, autobiographies, all that kind of stuff. But we're really going to be sticking with this for now. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about my favorite genres and subgenres. We're really going to be talking more about the subgenres because there are aspects of each of the main genres that I like and dislike. Aside from fantasy, there's nothing I dislike about fantasy. I also have a coffee because while I don't foresee this video taking too long, I am starting to lose my voice. So I'm sorry if it sounds raspy and maybe it's a little bit of ASMR. I feel like I sound better with a sore voice, but my throat hurts. So, you know, double-edged sword. My go-to is a white chocolate mocha, hot or iced. It's delicious. So the 5 main genres that we are going to talk about today are mystery, romance, thriller, fantasy, and sci-fi. And I basically like some subgenres of each of these main genres. Maybe I should scoot to one side. I'll scoot a little bit to this side. Ugh. Now we can have the graphic up the whole time, and now we can you can see what I'm talking about. So basically how I'm going to be doing this is I'm going to talk about each main genre and all of the subgenres within that main genre that I enjoy. I'll talk about them from my least liked to my most liked. Bear in mind that all of these are on the same favorite genres and subgenres list. So none of these are an absolute I don't like them. They're just I like them less than the others and or they have the most potential to go wrong. So let's talk about mystery first. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 of these that I feel like I enjoy. General mystery, cozy mystery, noir, paranormal mystery, and a police procedural. Typically, I don't really like anything to do with police, ever, but, however, I somehow do like reading about it. Like, In the Woods by Tana French and like that subsequent Dublin Murder series is all like basically a police procedural and I really enjoyed it. But I definitely feel like it has the most potential to go wrong and be so invested in telling me all about police stuff and getting into the technical details of that I just really wouldn't care because I don't care about that stuff. Noir is also something that I didn't think that I would enjoy until I read a few books that were basically noir and I really enjoyed them. So this was an unexpected, but I also feel like it does have the potential to go wrong and I would not like it. I think a general mystery is also fun for me. I think I need it to be paired with something else. Like most recently Razorblade Tears was just a general mystery. However, it had more of a revenge story as well, and I feel like it needed that to carry along the mystery part because I was much more engaged with the revenge story. Paranormal mystery, I feel like, is something that is just right there in my comfort zone. It's paranormal, it's weird, it's a bit creepy, I will be horrified possibly, and we have a mysterious element, and I feel like that's just in my comfort zone. Of course I'm going to like it. And finally, cozy mystery. This one is very interesting to me because I have only just began reading cozy mysteries, but they're so fun. They're so camp and I love it, and I just didn't realize that I would enjoy this, and I do enjoy this. So I'm enjoying it. And now we're going to talk about romance. So there are 4 romance subgenres that I really much enjoy. Romantic suspense is one of those where I feel like it has the most potential to make me not happy and for me not to root for the relationship or for me to just not care about these people because we're having the undertones of suspense, and that could come from various parts of the story. But I do always enjoy an attempt. I will always attempt. I want to say same for gothic romance. I feel like a gothic romance could be too focused on the world building that is not talking to us about the relationship. It could be too focused on the relationship and it's not telling us about the world building. It also has the potential, because if it's placed in a time period that would be more historical, things could not feel as nice as I would like them to. Just the potential for downfall is there, and it makes me nervous. I love a good try. I will always attempt. However, it can't necessarily be an all-time favorite because they're not always a banger. Then contemporary romance, that's the sweet spot, that's the comfort zone. I read the majority of romance that I read, I want to say, is a contemporary romance, unless it is a fantasy romance. But then isn't that just a paranormal romance? I guess it could be, depending on what kind of fantasy we're talking about. I did read, what was it, In the Ravenous Dark, and I felt like that was very paranormal, even though it was like fantasy, but they were talking about death and ghosts a lot. I felt like that was a lot, very paranormal. I loved it. It was great. I mean, any book that I talk about during this list is going to be highly recommended if it seems like your cup of tea. So let's talk about thriller real quick. I really only like a lot of these thriller aspects in fantasy, like espionage. I would really only care for like spies if they were like, I don't know, fae or something like that. I really only think that I like real hardcore spy movies if they're movies, exactly what I said. So I'm moving that on over. We'll talk about that later. Because I don't want to say they're a favorite. They just can't be. I don't read them. Political thrillers, I feel like I enjoy those. They just can't be real. They can't be real. So we'll keep political thriller there. We'll talk more. Techno thriller, I think I enjoy those. I've never read one. Here's the thing, some of these are going to be, I've never read one of these. Let's talk about environmental thriller and techno thriller, because I've definitely never read one of these. Environmental thriller would be like the movie The Mist. I guess it could possibly be like I Am Legend. That's a little bit mystery though, but like very much like robots. But I've never read a techno thriller nor an environmental thriller, I don't think. I am going to be reading the Broken Earth trilogy, and that might be environmental thriller, but I think that's much more sci-fi. Climate sci-fi. So, never read one of those. I think I'd like them because I like movies associated with them. Political thriller. Have I read a political thriller? I want to say I've read like a political thriller in the sense, I don't think I've read a political thriller. I feel like I would enjoy a political thriller, or reading one of those. It just can't be real. Can't be real. And, you know, I don't think that if you have any recommendations of, like, a political thriller, a techno thriller, or an environmental thriller that are books, let me know in the comments, because I love to read one. I feel like I would enjoy these. I just have never encountered one, I don't think. A supernatural thriller, of course I enjoy those. Of course I enjoy those. Supernatural and thrilling. Like, that's going to be an obvious. But I think my favorite here would be the psychological thriller, because those mess me up. They mess me up a lot, and I think about those for days. When they're done well, and even when they're done vaguely mediocre, because I don't really have a high enough standard for thrillers, but like, I really enjoy those. They mess me up, and I think about them forever, and it kind of ruins me, but I love it. Oh, let's talk about fantasy, the one genre where I love all the subgenres, all of them, you guys. I feel like traditional fantasy would be like the one that I like the least, but only because it's like the base level, you know? Like, I feel like it's just what got everybody started, and now we just build off of that, and everything has become so much more magical. And I feel like I enjoy it for sure, but it's also not the stopping point. It's the starting point. Historical fantasy. So this one is the only historical anything that I enjoy. Historical fantasy has the opportunity for me to enjoy it because there's a fantastical element. If it is done well enough where I am not offended by the history of it all, I really enjoy it, and I find it very fascinating. I think that it It is just lower on the list because it is a historical, and because of that, it does have the opportunity for me to dislike it, because it is too historical. We'll kind of talk about urban fantasy and contemporary fantasy in the same way, because honestly, I'm not sure of like the big differences between them, aside from, I guess, like the setting. To me, what it seems like is contemporary fantasy would be Crescent City, and urban fantasy would be like Legendborn, where in an urban fantasy it's taking place in the human world, but it is fantastical, and a contemporary setting it is more so taking place in the fantastical world, but it is the current timeline. These ones are interesting to me because I never thought that I would enjoy them until I read books like those, and I was like, oh, I really do enjoy this. This is very interesting to me, and just because it takes place in the current time period doesn't mean that it is any less fantastical, and if anything, it feels so much more like it reminds me of being a kid again, where I felt like, yeah, this could definitely be happening right now, you know, like going back to my early reading days, you know? Fantasy horror, I feel like, is something that I don't read enough of for how much I enjoy it every time I do read it. I always struggle trying to find horror authors because it is a subject that I like to read about. I love to be horrified, but in ways where I feel comfortable, and not everybody likes to put content warnings on their stuff, and not every fan base for every genre is as welcoming of content warnings either. So it is a little bit harder for me to find those things. Now with fantasy horror, I feel like it is much easier for me to find things because I can find authors who are similar in writing style and in taste as other authors who are fantasy authors, but they are also doing more of a horror element. I feel like it is a safer place for me to be in trying to get more introduced into a horror aspect. Then we have high and epic fantasy, which are really just, you know, traditional fantasy times 11. We just turned it up to 11. It's just amazing, and it consumes me. It's all I think about. It brings me so much joy because it is so all-consuming, and I need to know so much, and if it's done well in the way where I can just think about it, and because it is so well written, everything makes sense, and I can just think about it and try and understand what's going on and hypothesize, like, that is amazing to me. That's the experience I am always after. And finally, this one, slipstream. I have never heard of this term before now, but I feel like this one is my all-time favorite genre. This is one where genres, all these kind of different subgenres, like, slip together, and it could be like a few different things, like sci-fi fantasy, or like, what was it called? Certain Dark Things was called neon noir, and like it's definitely like more fantasy because they're vampires and everything, but it was like neon noir. And so I just feel like it is definitely something new that I have discovered about my reading within the past couple, I would say, like 6 months, but I'm so glad there's a name for it. Like, I didn't even know, and it's beautiful, and when it can be done well, it can be done so well, and it's gorgeous, beautiful, I love it. And finally, let's talk about sci-fi. I like most of these subgenres, which is pretty dope because sci-fi fantasy has really always been my comfort zone, my sweet spot, and more so in my adulthood when I've been more comfortable purchasing and reading sci-fi without feeling critiqued. I have really opened myself up to that genre, and I feel like I really enjoy a lot of it. Let's talk about dystopia and utopia because I feel like these are the first introduction everyone has to sci-fi. Everyone read some version of like The Giver or Hunger Games or like all of these weird, what was the other one? Divergent. Like, we read the shit out of dystopians, okay? We all somewhat love sci-fi, okay? And I feel like that is just like where sci-fi gets everyone, and everyone can agree that a good dystopia, utopia story are worth a read. Then let's talk about hard sci-fi and soft sci-fi. So these are kind of interesting. It's always like, it's like the high and epic fantasy as well. Like, how much sci-fi do you like in it? And honestly, I feel like I don't necessarily have a preference as long as it is done well and I need it to be done with something else. I feel like I can't just have a whole book about like science. Like, this is the reason why I can't read an Andy Weir. His characters are milquetoast and it's just science. Like, I don't care. Like, I need your science and your sci-fi to be layered with like good characters that I care about, or world building, or like an adventure, something. But it's none of those things and the characters are bland, and I just will not subject myself to that. Cyberpunk and steampunk are very interesting. I'm putting them here in the list more so because I like that style and that aesthetic and that version, and movies like it, cosplay like it. I love it all. I just don't think I've ever read anything like it. Oh, I did kind of. In the Mortal Instruments, it did kind of feel like steampunkish, but like not all the way, you know? So like, if you have any recommendations for that, please let me know down in the comments, because that is something that I am very interested in reading. And then, of course, there is sci-fi romance that has recently stolen my heart, and I just very much enjoy it. I will refer to the Zap Brannigan quote in Futurama.
I did make it with a hot alien babe. And in the end, is that not what man has dreamt of since first he looked up at the stars?
Yes, yes, it's everyone's dream, unless it is not your dream. And then a space opera. It's like the high fantasy of sci-fi, and like when it's done well with good characters that I care about in a world that I care about, with politics that I am engaged with, you cannot get any better. It is up there with Slipstream. It is such a good genre, and I'm loving every second of it. It's so can we even? So good. These would be things like Dune, and there's also a more, not a recent book that came out, but something that I heard about because I have been researching the Hugo and the Nebula Awards, wink wink, and something came out in the last couple of years that's a space opera, and I'm very interested in it, and I can't think of the name right now, but Editing McKinsey will pop in a picture here because I want you to know about it. So those were my favorite genres and subgenres. Tell me what yours are in the comments down below, and we can have a conversation. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!